My guest today is actually the newest addition to the TYT Investigates fold. His name is Ken Klippenstein. He comes to us from Madison, Wisconsin. He is, in addition to working for TYT Investigates, he is a writer for the Daily Beast. Let's talk about one of the stories that you covered recently, which I find interesting, and it relates to our new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. And you described in a story for TYT Investigates, and I'm not sure, I assume it ran elsewhere, that about his evangelical Christian background, and that at a recent visit to the CIA, he was talking a lot about the rapture, and which is probably not, for example, what Hillary Clinton talked about a lot, or John Kerry when they would go to the CIA. Where did that story come from?
Well, my editor Jonathan and I had both been sort of interested in these. I had been hearing whispers from the intelligence community that this guy doesn't just say these things to get elected, as many kind of secular people might assume. You know, they might sort of think, oh, it's Trump says he, loves the Bible. He kissed the Bible. He talks about 2 Corinthians instead of 2 Corinthians. So people just sort of assume, oh, they're doing what they got to do to get elected. They don't really believe it. And so I started hearing from sources in former CIA, former DIA, who were friends with CIA, telling me like, no, this guy's serious. He really does believe this stuff. And when I first heard that, I thought it was a little off the wall. This consummate Washington insider now heading, the biggest intelligence agency. Why would Trump put a religious zealot in charge of that? But when I looked into it and contacted a civil rights group that works to ensure that certain forms of sectarian religion aren't pushed on people that serve in the armed forces, which is really important, by the way, because most people are Christian in this country, but if you're not, that can make it really difficult for career advancement, and particularly the military. It's what I was told by Mikey Weinstein, who has a ton of sources in the intelligence community. He's just very trusted, respected. He was in the JAG Corps himself. I believe he was in the Air Force at one point. So he has a credibility with these folks. What Weinstein told me is that he had multiple sources telling him that Pompeo would start monologuing on the rapture. And I don't know how much your viewers know about the agency, but it tends to be a little more cerebral than some other agencies. People tend to be pretty well educated, relative to the defense and intelligence community. They tend to speak different languages, understand different regions. I mean, that's the nature of the job. You're gathering intelligence. It's not uncommon among certain sects within evangelicalism to believe in what's called end times eschatology. The idea that Jerusalem is going to be the eternal city of Israel, and then if we make it the capital of Israel, then it will bring about the apocalypse, and then the souls rise to heaven, Christ comes back, and et cetera, et cetera. Very scary implications if you're formulating foreign policy, because I would hope that our foreign policy is going to want to ensure that human rights are respected, or at least that the apocalypse doesn't happen. And that's really what I was told CIA officials were terrified of.
Well, right, because you have a Secretary of State, someone who, presumably this is the top diplomat, the nation's top diplomat, and you want him or her to be promoting peace, presumably. Whereas if you think that the rapture is coming and we need to, for example, move the US Embassy to Jerusalem to help facilitate the rapture, then maybe you're not going. You might have a little less inclination to stop the nuclear holocaust from taking place. You might actually be promoting policies that would further. I mean, it's hard to imagine that we would have a Secretary of State who would be thinking, "Oh, if only the apocalypse is coming, I got to do everything I can to smooth the path for it." But if you are a true believer, which Mike Pompeo appears to be, and Mike Pence also, who a lot of people would like to see Trump impeach, so that Pence would then become president. That's serious. That's a real worry. And yet we all have to sort of act as if it's perfectly normal that we have a Secretary of State who is embracing the soon to be coming of the rapture.